and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick, with the City of Hampton's Communications and Marketing Department. And today we're going to talk about children and bullying and what we as parents can do. My guest is Alvean Lyons. Welcome back, Alvean.
Hi, good morning.
This is, I think, such an emotional topic because we want to protect our kids so much.
Yes.
And you can't keep them in a bubble.
Yes.
So how do you keep them safe physically and emotionally? Sometimes bullying is more about the emotion and the power than it is the physical effects.
That's so true. And I like to think of it in terms of bullying is sort of it's the push, when you're constantly pushing someone, whether it's physically pushing them or emotionally pushing them past their comfort zone into for all intents and purposes, a danger zone for them emotionally or physically. And so you know that in the past we've used some acronyms to kind of remember certain things that we can do as parents. So using that concept of push, let's start where P is concerned.
Okay.
It's so important that we plug in with our kids. A lot of times the saddest stories are finding out that a child either hurt themselves or is really going through something, God forbid a suicide is associated with it, and nobody even knew what the kid was going through. Those are the worst ones, because as a parent, that sense that I didn't even know that I needed to protect you from something. I didn't even know that I had to get involved. You feel so helpless in that. And the only way to try to prevent that, and there's no perfect panacea to anything, is plugging in with our kids. Okay. So one of the ways that I'd say that it's really good to do is using the 3 Ps of pit, peek, and punch. Asking your kids every day, what was the pit of your day? What was your low point? If you start to hear from your kids every single day that I hate going to lunch, or I hate going to PE, I hate going into the locker room, those are triggers to say, okay, what's going on in these spaces?
Yeah, because they're not going to come right out and tell you.
No, generally they won't.
Until it's too late, really.
Sometimes that's the case, and hopefully we will prevent some of that happening, that it won't be too late for some of our Hampton Roads kids, or even the parents who are watching this, on the internet. But there is something that we can try to do. We want to create the environment where our kids feel like they have some place that they can go. And as parents, we would like to be that first line of defense, of course. So in using those 3 Ps, when you're hearing those consistent messages of a place that is a place or experience, or with certain people that the kid is having a hard time,
that
absolutely.
might be how you find out the kid doesn't want to ride the bus anymore.
Exactly. That's their pit. I don't want to be there. I don't enjoy this. I don't like this. Can you pick me up instead of making me take the bus home? Can I walk? Can I go to so-and-so's house instead? Those are all of our little indicators. Those should trigger your spidey senses a bit. So finding out what that pit is. Find out what the peak is. What is working well? Are there environments that they are happiest? Is there something that maybe we can do to promote more of those experiences for our kids so that they feel good about themselves? If we know that they love when they're in art, then maybe there's something that we can do to expose them to more art. Maybe if art is the space that your kid is kind of communicating is their safe zone, then perhaps you can develop a relationship with the art teacher that says that instead of them eating lunch in the cafeteria, can they sit with you in the art room and have lunch with you instead? Because most teachers, they want to make sure that our kids are safe and fine also. So many of them are willing to be partners in the process, especially some of our great teachers in Hampton City Schools.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that we give them a chance to be part of the solution as well.
That's right.
So then we want to find out the punch also. And punch for me is just a cute term in referring to like the juice or the gossip going on. You want to be the parent in the know. Find out what's going on. One of the things I tell parents sometimes is, because we're busy, sometimes we have a tendency when our kids start telling us stories about what's going on, we'll have a tendency of saying, okay, I just want to know the stuff that has to do with you. Well, here's the important thing. If your kid is telling you the story, in their heads, it had something to do with them. It registered for them psychologically or emotionally in some way. So you want to listen to those stories that don't seem to include your child, because it helps us to figure out what's going on in their world.
What matters. Right.
Exactly. And do we need to re-script how they're processing some of the things that they've seen? Because the other element is, if they're watching things happen to somebody else, a child being bullied even, And this is something that is happening at a peer level. And they're talking about, person A was saying something to person B when we were at in the cafeteria, and so spilled their milk or, knocked their tray over or was talking about them and their boyfriends. Listening to those things, you want to pay attention to what does your child say about it? Does your child think it's okay for that behavior? Does your child think that there's something that should be done but does not necessarily know what to do about it? Finding out the punch of their day, being in the know of what's going on for them socially, gives us an avenue to help re-script and script what it is that they're saying to themselves about what they're witnessing. So pit, peek, punch is a great way to be able to plug in with your kids. It can be done in the car. We do it around our dinner table.
The dinner table's a great time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And whoever remembers it gets to pick who has to tell it first. So
that's
if
good.
my son remembers that, hey, we have to do pit, peek, punch, he gets to say, okay, I want my sister to go first today. Or he could say, I want dad to go first today. So whoever remembers first that we need to plug in, their reward is they get to choose who has to do it first. So, and we all do it, even as the adults in the family. So because it does not change. We want them to know that no matter where you are, at what point in your life, these things are still applicable. And the only way to do it is to model it. So that's the first thing I say. So in your P of push, plug in. We want our kids to understand what healthy relationships look like. If we don't model for them what they look like, if we're yelling at each other and God forbid using inappropriate language with each other, and it's just the common way in which we communicate, it makes it harder for our kids to identify what's inappropriate when they leave home. So we want to be sure that we are talking to them about what healthy relationships are supposed to be. How are friends supposed to make you feel? When you call somebody your friend, what's the criteria for determining that he or she is your friend? If they leave you out of everything, unless you're doing what they want you to do, is that really a friend? We need to help our kids figure out what that looks like, because everybody wants to belong. Our kids want to find some place that they fit. And sometimes we'll sacrifice how we should be treated to just have somebody to hang out with.
Yeah.
And we've got to teach our kids that you are worthy of being treated well. But they have to see that modeled also. So we can't bully them at home and expect them to not think it's acceptable to be bullied out in the street. It's very important that we're modeling good, healthy relationships so they understand what that should look like for them. Then S, safe zones. Kids need to know, who is it safe for me to talk to? Sometimes they will identify those places for themselves. They have natural, organic relationships with people, various adults, good friends, so on and so forth, that they will go to and they'll talk to in a situation. But other times, you may have a kid who's a little bit more of an introvert, and you have to help develop those spaces for them. If you have good relationships with some of the teachers or counselors at school that they can go to and talk to, you might want to bring your child in the conversation. Say, hey, listen, you could talk to Miss K if there's something that's going on and you don't want to talk to mommy about it, because you and Miss K have already agreed, hey, if something's going on with my son, don't hesitate to call me at work. Don't hesitate to text me if you need to after hours. Make sure that it's clear that you develop a partnership so that there are other arms, eyes, ears, and fingers that are out there looking out for your kids.
I think that's so smart. And in the older years, I think it happens a little bit naturally. As your kids are in, particularly with sports, coaches are just used to being.
Fantastic.
And they're
sometimes.
wonderful at it.
Yes.
And then I think if your kid is in, yearbook or scholastic bowl or whatever else it is, you have that. And those teachers are usually know your child anyway. But I think it's a little harder in the elementary and middle school years, because you don't see those teachers outside of the classroom as much. You don't have a chance to have that relationship. So, it also might be an aunt or an uncle. It might be,
I was just going to say that, because it could be a
friend.
It could be a family member. It could be somebody in the community. It could be somebody in your faith community. But we need to help our kids identify who those people are, because we want to make sure that we have developed a connection with those people, so that this doesn't end up being a reservoir. You hear what's going on with my kid and it stops with you, but it's a river. You hear what's going on with my kid. You do what you can, but you make sure you connect me in this process, because I I need to do my job as a parent, and I want to do my job as a parent. So it's important that we help them to develop those. So if they're able to develop some on their own, then that's just icing on the cake, that they have something that feels very good for them and safe for them. But we want to make sure that we're part of the process too, because we want to make sure who you're talking to shares our values and understands what our expectations are also in being able to be there for our kids. So safe zones is S. Help them to develop that.
Okay.
And then H. Recognize that help your kids to understand the importance of helping others. That when you sit back and watch somebody be mistreated, you are participating in the process also by not saying anything. That when you tell, you're not tattling, you're helping. And there's a difference between tattling and helping. And sometimes you hear terms like snitches.
Right.
Well, we need to be careful with that. Because if we develop a society and a community of people who believe that when I tell the truth about what's going on, I'm somehow snitching, there is such negative connotation that surrounds that.
It's huge
that
in
works
the culture
so
right now.
yes, works so badly against our children. You are taking a power position because snitches are seen as weak and people that don't deserve to be respected and all kinds of other derogatory things that surround that, rats and so on and so forth. But when you're helping someone, that is a power position. That's a hero position. There's some strength in that. And we have to rescript the way that we communicate those things to our kids. You should let somebody know. You may need to let them know that, look, this has to be in confidence because there are a lot of people who are angry, aggressive, whatever it may be. You may need to tell the story and set the context for what you're saying so people understand that this isn't something that can be repeated readily or out there because the repercussions for that particular person who's sharing the information. So confidentiality may be very important where the adults in the environment are concerned. But our job as parents is to make sure that our kids understand that you cannot be a bystander to somebody else being hurt and think that it's okay.
I think sometimes kids are like, "Phew, at least it's not me,
Yeah.
you know? And so they're reluctant. There's also, I mean, it depends on the age and what's going on. If it's verbal, there are times when you can also teach your kid just to stand up. Say, hey,
Right.
that's not okay. You can't
Right.
keep calling this person, that's so gay or retarded or
Yep,
any of those
absolutely.
things. You just
Absolutely.
stop.
It's true. It's true. But a lot of that strength that our kids get comes from us. We're the ones who impart that thing in them. It's kind of like fuels. We have to fill their tank with what it is that they're going to need because they're going to be driving that car all day long without us. But what we put in that tank has a lot to do with how far they're going to be able to travel. And we want them to be able to travel far. We want them to be enormously successful in their social interactions, in addition to all the other things that go on in their lives.
Right.
But if they don't get it from us, where do we hope that they're going to get it from? They're going to get it in accidental scoops and nuggets here and there. I mean, we have a job that we have the privilege of doing as parenting. And while parenting is tough, don't get me wrong, and it's challenging when we're all tired and working hard and trying to make everything happen for our kids, it's still a privilege. There's still something enormously powerful and positive about being a parent.
Yeah.
And it's the closest you get to being a little God. It's just, forgive the reference, but I mean, you get a chance to be part of sculpting and shaping another human being, and being able to take that and know that you're leaving a beautiful legacy in this world because you put a good person out there who wants good things for more than just themselves is something to be proud of and not something to be very passive about in the process. So we have to be active in it. But when it comes to something like bullying, it is such a measure of our character to sit back and do nothing or to step forward and be part of that solution because other people need you. Sometimes we have to be the voice to those who don't have the courage or the ability to speak for themselves.
And I don't know if there's more bullying than there used to be. It feels like it to me, but I mean, my dad will tell stories about being bullied as a kid. He was small, and back then you were supposed, and bless his heart, he would coach my kids. No, you go back and hit. I'm like, no, not anymore. But it's more complex now. There's all kinds of ways. It's not just being punched, There's
Absolutely.
Cell phones and Facebook and all the things kids are exposed to can make those cliques and that bullying and that, excluding people and putting other people down just so much easier and so much harder for us to see or find.
You're right. It is very challenging sometimes because the advent of technology has made it so easy
Kids
to
have more
bully
access to
in
each
ways
other.
that we didn't have to deal with. So it is true that there are additional challenges in the process. And staying connected with your kid, which is why I started with the plugging in.
Plug in.
Yep, plugging in with your kid to find out, hey, what's going on social media? You know, what are the people tweeting about today? I lean over all the time. When my kids open their phone, I'm leaning over their shoulder because I want to see what pictures are being posted. If I see something that looks inappropriate, I immediately, hold on, scroll that again. And I see, who posted that? What do you think about that picture? Because I want to know what you think about what you're seeing and what you think should be done about that. Should something be done? Does somebody's parent deserve a phone call? Does some school need to know what's going on? I need to know how you feel about that, because when I'm not with you, how are you navigating your own social environment? What do you believe is appropriate and inappropriate? But the only way to find out is to stay plugged in enough with you to know how that's working. And it may mean it's an opportunity for me as a parent to say, hey, I know that child, or I'm aware of where that child goes to school. I may need to be the advocate on behalf of that child, because that child's parents may not know
exactly
what's taking place.
I think we as parents have to keep that information flowing. It's,
absolutely.
You know, somebody else may drive carpool and hear something, or something may happen over at a friend's house, and if we don't tell each other, it just you know, increases the chances that something's going to escalate, someone's going to get hurt emotionally or physically. It's we need those resources out there. We've got to help each other.
It's so true. And
like, for
we have to be a network.
Us. We can be, you know, it's not snitching. It's helping.
Exactly. and it's not me saying in any form or fashion that you're not doing your job as a parent. It's me saying, I know how much you love your kid, and I've just found out something that I know is going to matter to you. So I just want to let you know what I heard so that you can handle it however you want to. I'm not telling you how to parent. I just want to empower you to be able to parent the way that you want to parent, so that I can know for myself, regardless of what you decide to do, that I didn't sit back and let anything happen that I could have been a part of being the solution, as opposed to another part of the problem. So we do have to be a network and a team as parents.
Right.
Your kid is my kid. I may not know him personally well, but the reality is there's overlapping experiences. What we allow to go on in our zones happen in other zones, and it is literally the ripple effect. If you drop a pebble in the water, you may not see every one of those ripples, but eventually it touches the shore. So it's the same thing that happens socially with our kids. It may not have affected my child directly, but eventually that's going to touch the shore of my child's life also.
Yeah, it's the world they live in.
Exactly. And we're in this together. There's no way to look at the parenting and social experience of our children and think that it exists in a bubble. Every element is connected to another element. So one day my kid could be dating your kid. They could end up being best friends.
Right.
They could be colleagues together. They could be roommates. What goes on in your child's world should matter to me. Not for me to interfere in your parenting, but for me to care that things go well for you also. We're in this together as a community.
And so are our kids. And so
Absolutely.
Teaching them to help, not snitch, teaching them to stand up, teaching them to recognize when a situation is out of hand.
Absolutely, is important, and it is our job. So we have 4 very simple things in terms of the push concept to be able to remember. Plug in with your kids. Help them to understand what healthy relationships look and feel like, and model those for them. Because it's not do as I say, but don't do as I do.
Right.
Kids watch what you do a lot more than they listen to what you say.
So true.
S, help them develop safe zones, places that they can go, that you've developed partnerships to the best of your ability so that it becomes a river and not a reservoir. And H, teach them the importance of helping. And helping is not the same thing as snitching.
Nope.
There's something very powerful and positive about you not sitting back and watching something happen to somebody else that you could have helped to prevent. It's a good thing.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much. This is a wonderful
Absolutely.
recap. And thank you. I hope this gives you some ideas on how to prevent or be aware of bullying that your child may experience, or that anyone in your personal network might experience. Thank you.